I can be as self-deprecating as any guy in the room, but I honestly, try to humble myself every day. I think I'm the most imperfect person on this call, and I struggle to be very transparent from the start. I struggle with prayer. I struggle with giving up things to God. I struggle with, at times, battling my own ego and really trying to die to that. That's a Matt Degg's conversation that challenged me a few years ago. And, I always feel a little less when I have an opportunity to do something like this. And I was talking with a group of coaches before I got on here. And that was one of the things we had talked about. One of the guys brought up, he goes, man, I hate when people say they're humbled. He's like, because they don't mean that. Well, in this scenario, I'm extremely humbled, very extremely. But what I wanted to share, I guess what's been on my heart here lately has been, go right to it, man. Proverbs 27:17. And it's one that most coaches know. It's, if you followed Score International, if you follow any folks like that, iron sharpens iron so that one man sharpen another. And that has been at the forefront for me in my thoughts, and obviously throughout this whole transition in coaching. And what I mean by that is I've talked pretty openly about my transition to ABCA and being a coach for 11 years, and honestly feeling like, as much as I maybe thought I was walking in faith, I look back and I'm embarrassed at the person I was in the dugout and how I communicated and how I led. And I think more importantly, maybe truly understanding how I was being engineered and what was leading that charge every day as a coach. And this is, to me, is the this is the crux of the pivot point for most, I'm going to say most all coaches, is the day that you start to realize it ain't about you. And it sounds, if you're on this call and you're seeking information, you've probably already reached that pivot point. But if you look back at your career, you could probably remember a day or an aha moment or a season or a player or a conversation or, an epiphany where you said, man, I'm not doing this in the spirit in which I should. And sometimes for us, like that's a conversation from another coach. And so what I go back to is when I had 11 years of coaching, and I did not, at the time, I didn't really see it this way, but when I was pulled out of coaching to go work at ABCA, I still had a lot of that ego drive. And not that I'd never sought after mentorship or called other coaches. That was still there. I think it was the fact I probably wasn't listening. I was more of, hey, I'm doing it, and yeah, I hear you, but I still got all the answers. Okay, so then I go to ABCA and we start the podcast, and I love telling the story. We start doing the show, and I feel like, hey, man, we're going to make the best baseball show that's out there. We're going to talk double plays better than anybody. This is what this is going to be. And then about 10 episodes in, I keep hearing, it was about me and it was about what I was doing. And then all of a sudden I started to realize, it's about players, it's about relationships, it's about wedding invites, birth announcements. 2 shows later, I was at this point, it was really about me. And, I started to, and it just kept happening over and over again. And I started to realize, back to Proverbs, I started to realize that this was the opportunity where myself and like this microphone and this computer and John, and I'm interviewing John for the podcast, and man, your words are sharpening me. And I get first hand at it. I get first crack at hearing this conversation. It's just me and you, and then we release it to the world. And I started to realize that, man, these conversations were sharpening me. And then I listened differently. And then I interpreted the information much differently. And then my heart started to change. Okay. And this is where let me sidetrack you. So I grew up in the Baptist church. I don't know if any of you grew up in the Baptist church. My grandmother, God rest her soul, every single day. As a child, it was, you guys know how the Baptists work. It's Monday night prayer group, and it's Tuesday night choir practice, and it's Wednesday night fellowship, and it's Thursday night, let's just go clean the church and hang out with the same people. And then it's Friday night. Why are we even, let's just be there for no reason. And then it's Saturday, let's get ready for Sunday, and Sunday, let's crush it again. And I lived in the church. And God Love Baptist, man, that fire and brimstone message, that it's still in me, like this guilt, you know, and I'm going to speak very freely here, and like it or love it. Man, I have really worked hard to move away from that guilt, like really worked hard to move away from it. And my wife's Catholic, and she's devout, and there's nothing wrong with that. Where I always come back to is this: if we all die and go to heaven, and there's a line of Methodists, and there's a line of Catholics, and there's a line of Baptists, there's a line of Jewish folks, and there's a line, I mean, all the different sects, and who's getting in? And that's what I've always told my wife. I was like, you can claim whatever, I hear you. For me, where I've landed is that I feel like with my God, my Savior, I have an individual relationship with him. He knows me, I know him, and the spirit in which he knows me and the spirit in which I know him, that's a relationship that we have. And I don't claim it to be anything other than I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. And back to this iron sharpens iron. These conversations started to open my mind to that idea that my story doesn't have to sound like Augie Garrido's. My story doesn't have to sound like John Parker's. My story doesn't have to sound like Matt Deggs or Keith Madison or Stu Fritz, or it doesn't have to sound like anybody's. It has to be my own. And I have to be at peace with whatever mistakes I think I made early, and then start to rectify those and move forward and be better because of it. And I can remember, as I was talking about earlier, the pivot point. As vividly as I'm talking to you right now, there was a true moment where I said out loud, man, this has been an act of God to not only pull me out of coaching, but put me into a position that literally I get to understand what servant leadership is. I get to truly wrap my mind around that concept. And I think it's something we talk about as coaches a lot, like, hey, we're here to serve our players. And we say it, and I've said it, man, I said it at nauseum, but I never understood what that really meant. And the way I've kind of formed it is this, and this comes back to again, the way that I view my Savior is this. I think the organizational pyramid, where the head coach sits at the top and the players are down here at the bottom, flipping that on its head, and the players are at the front and the assistants are before you, and you're in the very bottom, very back of the group. And man, that's the, I mean, I'm getting chills. That's the way in which I feel like, in essence, you know, I imagine these scenarios when you read the stories from the Bible of Jesus, and he's leading these packs of people. But I don't view, in my mind, I don't view that he's in the forefront leading packs of people. He's in the back pushing these people forward. And I think about that for us as coaches. I think about if we can remove ourselves from the leadership position and put ourselves in the back of the group and push people forward. You talk about iron sharpening iron. To me, that's the spirit in which you want to approach your players. So the passion in which I'll bring on a daily basis, or the method of teaching, or the true mission behind the teaching, or the connection that you can have with players, the true forming of relationships that we can have with players. In essence, that relationship should not only sharpen you, it's obviously sharpen your players. And I had a conversation with our shortstop, and I had who's one of the best players I've ever coached. And then we had the National Pitcher of the Year this past year. And both those individuals challenged me differently. But what I think is at the crux, and I texted them both this morning and told them that I loved them, and you know, the response is back, just get your day off the right way. But the response is back anytime I've ever coached them has been, hey, what do you got for me? Well, coach, man, hey, here's something for you. And it's the willingness to accept that as coaches. Now, imagine what I'm saying. I'm asking a 22-year-old kid to evaluate and judge the 39-year-old head coach. But the relationship we've built is that, dude, I'd never come to you from a place of, hey, I've got the answers. It's always on your level, because we are on the same team. We're at the same place. I always tell our guys, I'm on the same journey you are. I just had a head start. and I spill coffee on my shirt every day, and I'm imperfect, and guess what? So are you. But that's what, again, that's why we meet each other halfway. And those guys have been willing to give me feedback. Hey, coach, man, you did a great job at this, and I think we could tighten this up over here, and this could be better. And so I go to that with this, and maybe a challenge on the coaching piece is, what are we doing? What are you doing? And then obviously, what am I doing on a daily basis to allow others to sharpen yourself? Are you seeking conversations on a daily basis? Are you putting your thoughts almost in a challenging way? Are you reading articles? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you scrolling through Twitter, watching short videos? Are you scrolling to listen for things that resonate with what you already coach and teach and believe? Or are you approaching those phone calls, those podcasts, those videos from a place of, hey, I don't know anything, man, sharpen me, make me better? And I almost, again, coming back to our walk in faith, I really at my core believe that is what helps allow me, and I'm not perfect at this, but man, that allows me to keep my ego at bay. It allows me to truly live in a place of humility. And I mean, so imagine coaching from a place of humility. Do you not think that your players see that, feel that, taste it? They do, man. They're so much smarter than we ever give them credit for. And along that same path, and I know I'm bouncing around, but along that same path is a place of allowing them to see you at your best and then allowing them to see you at your worst. And that is a place of vulnerability. But I also think if you can't be vulnerable, you won't get sharpened, because you come in hardened. You come in with the answer. You come in with ego. When I was in the mix of this job here at Georgia Gwinnett, and I told this story in Nashville, I called a good friend of mine. I was calling everybody. I mean, if you guys were following this at all, like, man, I had a pretty sweet job at ABCA. I had a job I could have stayed with all my life. I never would have had to have left, but I kept feeling this draw to come back to coaching. And I'm in the mix for the Georgia Gwinnett job, and I am seeking counsel from my inner circle, and then I'm expanding that inner circle just a little bit, just to get some different ideas. And I called Justin Hare, who's at Campbell University, and I'm in the hotel restaurant in Omaha, and we're in a rain out. And so I'm just in there getting some lunch. And I called Justin. He said, man, how's everything going? And I tell him, hey, man, I haven't told very many people this. I'm in the mix with this coaching job. And he says, well, where are you at with it? And I said, I'm really struggling. I'll be honest with you, man, I'm really struggling. Like, I'm not sleeping very well. My thoughts are racing. I can't find clarity. And then, of course, he says, have you prayed about it? And I said, no, so I'm not very good at prayer. I feel like God's got enough on his plate. He doesn't need my issues, which I know is not the way to look at it. That's my default. And he said, well, let me offer this. And I'm going to say this, that every hair of my body is going to raise up. I was not on the phone with Justin at that time. I feel God used Justin as a vessel to deliver this message. And he said, the one thing you got to keep in mind is this, is that if God wants to open this door for you and to come back to coaching, there's nothing that any man can do to close it, even yourself. And if God doesn't want that door to open up, there's nothing that any man, including yourself, can do to close it. And I sat back in my chair and I said, man, that to me, that's the eternal battle I've always fought, is give it up to God. And he said well, guess what? That's where you're at. You're now at another opportunity to really adopt that understanding. And I went up to my hotel room and I prayed that. And I prayed, man, allow me to give this up. Allow me to give up this pressure, this stress, and when I walked out of the hotel room, I was a completely different guy. And the whole process slowed down for me. And I go back to, again, iron sharpening iron, man, allowing yourself to come to a place of vulnerability and allowing yourself to come to a place of, I don't have the answers. And it's amazing to me how many times that I have approached a podcast interview, or I've approached a phone call with someone. And if I've approached it in that spirit, it's amazing how many times I've come out the other side better. The last passage I'll share with you, is Isaiah 6:8, if you're familiar. And I went back and read this today just to kind of refresh my mind around it. And the story of Isaiah really almost being asked and God saying, who can we send? And Isaiah, well, it can't be me. I mean, my mouth is full of sin. My life has been full of sin. And that's where I land at that. I'm a little self-deprecating and I'm a little my harshest critic, but I struggle with that a lot. Like, who am I to stand up and say, man, I walk with God? Because I know I don't always live the most godly life. I know my thoughts. I know, and what I love about it is it goes back to obviously Jesus dying for our sins, but it's that moment where, they take the hot coal and they scorn his mouth and it takes all the sin away. And he finally arrives at, here I am, send me. And it's no different than the feeling I had when you asked me to do this, John. I looked at the message and I put my phone down. Like, I was like, there's no way he just asked me to do that. And I literally, in my mind, heard Isaiah 6:8. And I said, man, I don't know if I'm going to be any good at this or not, but here I am, Lord, send me. And man, it makes me want to start crying when I say that out loud. But I think about that as players. They need men of God in their life, and they don't know that, but they do. And what's amazing is every single podcast interview or clinic or presentation that I bring up a walk with faith, it's amazing how many DMs that I get from coaches that say, hey, thank you for your strength to be able to say you're a man of faith on stage or on that podcast or whatever. And I inevitably look at that and I say, why is that something that needs to be recognized? Why is that such not the norm? You guys get me on that? Like, I really struggle with that. Like, what do you mean that's not the norm? So I work at a state school. I don't know where you guys are at, but like, on my interview said, I'm a man of faith. And I remember my AD saying, hey, you need to be careful with that. We're a state school. I said, then you probably shouldn't hire me, because I'm not going to hide in the shadows, because I walk in faith. I'm also willing to tell you I'm imperfect, but I also walk in faith. My sins have already been redeemed, man. Like, so I know that I don't have to be perfect on a daily basis. I know I'm forgiven because of my imperfections. And I had a player walk up to me one time, and he's obviously a very devout Christian. He said, Coach, I know you dance around it, man. You don't push it down our throat, man. You dance around it at times. He goes, but I'm telling you, you could go a little harder if you wanted to. And I went, talk about iron sharpening iron. Yeah. And I went, man, how can I be better? How can I? And I'm going to approach this next year from a little bit different perspective and a little more, I guess, not unapologetic, but more authentic from that end. Because I think the more you're allowing your players to see who you really are, and then more importantly, the struggles that you have, and like I started this whole thing with, all the things I struggle with on a daily basis, I think the more that I can allow myself to be vulnerable with them on those things and be authentic with them on those things, don't we all know they're going through the same thing? They're struggling with a lot of the same issues. And I think that's a place of power as a coach. So I hope some of that hit home, man. I really do. But I just value the opportunity to even talk that through out loud. Again, appreciate you.
Coach, I appreciate you being willing to. It's I know. I mean, and like I told you in my DM, and I'll tell these guys, and I've spoken to these guys just about every week to and kind of plugged your podcast and some other things that I've been listening to, and that's one thing that your conversation, I guess your podcast with Coach Hare. I listened to several weeks ago, and you guys openly on your podcast both of you talked about your faith and how important it was in your life. And I mean, I think I may have reached out to you and DM'd you at that time. And I think both of you, and just saying, hey, really appreciate you being open and honest about your faith. And,
Sure.
but like you said, I mean, it should be the norm, wise into the norm. And,
Yep.
but it's been other podcasts that you've done, Coach Box, I've listened to a lot, several things with him. Sure. And, and talking about his faith. And so, it's definitely something that is we should be growing with each other. And that's one reason we started this a few weeks ago when when baseball was taken out from under us. And obviously
Sure.
baseball is a thing that we have, all these guys have in common, but obviously, they love the Lord as well. And one thing, as you were talking about, iron sharpening iron, and of course you were talking about with Isaiah, here am I, send me. One thing that came to my mind was and I'm not exactly sure where it is in the New Testament. I was trying to look it up real quick, but it talked about the fruit of the Spirit, and as we live our life in front of these kids, the Scripture tells us that they will know us and know our heart by the way we live in front of them, by the fruit that we produce. And if we're not producing fruit, if we're not showing love, peace, patience, joy, kindness, gentleness, those type of things to our kids, even while coaching them hard, they'll never know how much we love them and care for them. And so that's, like I said, I just wanted to share that was one thing that came to mind when you were talking about iron sharpening iron. And so any of you other guys, before we kind of open up for baseball stuff, any of you other guys, got any comments about this particular subject that Coach was talking about?
I can tell you this, I can identify a lot with what you talk about, Sheets, in terms of how I was early on. I was a head football coach and a head baseball coach head football coach for 10 years, and I would have never wanted to play for me.
Sure.
Yeah, I was one of those guys that, as Deg says, like a transactional coach.
Mm-hmm.
But in thinking of that, it just reminded me of the quote that I love from Simon Sinek's book about leaders eat last. You can easily tell the character of a man by how he treats those who can do nothing for him.
That's it. Yeah.
And, I think that was one of the things just kind of helped me to reach out and be mindful of every player on the team, not just the guys that are contributing.
Mm-hmm.
And as John, you never know when that guy's going to be one of those guys that could do that. But I identify a lot with what you're saying, and I appreciate you to being vulnerable enough to talk to us about it.
Sure, appreciate that.
All right. Well, if there's nobody else to talk about this particular subject or whatever, Coach Sheets, and of course, I mean, I was anticipating, I was hoping we would have 20, 30, 40, whoever on here, and I was just gonna Coach Guerrero and I, we've known each other since we were like 10 years old. We grew up together, and
he looks older than me, doesn't he?
but he's older than I am. He actually coached me in Dixie Major baseball. So yeah, he's actually older than I am, even though I may look older. But anyway, just wanted to get that out there. So
sure.
But anyway, we I know he and I both have just a few questions, but I mean, we only have a handful of guys. I'll open it up to some other guys as well if they got any baseball questions for you. But one thing, and you kind of hit on this just a little bit during your talk, but one question I had for you, being that you're at a public school, a public college, and like I said, I've listened to you numerous times on your podcast and that kind of stuff. But how do you implement, your faith and kind of juggle that being at a public school?
Like I mentioned, I'm extremely mindful of when, where, and how that I deliver that message. And hey, we signed a kid this year from Canada. He's Muslim.
Oh wow.
And he said, I remember standing outside our cages and we're getting ready to close the deal. And he said, Coach, if I mentioned faith, and he said, have I told you that I'm Muslim? Did you know that? And I was like, well, I mean, your name is Kareem Kabrazli. So I had a, in my mind, I'm going, and I said, why do you think you need to tell me that? He goes, I just didn't know if you'd have an issue with it. And I said, well, Kareem, would I want you to one day know Jesus Christ? Sure. But also, man, if you have a walk in faith that you're in, and man, you're going to make me better. Iron sharpens iron. You're going to make me better. You're the first Muslim player I've ever coached. And we're going to respect, your practice. And in the same way, you'll respect ours. You'll get to know, come to see ours. I try to be, and this is where, again, moving into next year, I want to be more intentional with that. I think where I work it in, now we do a classroom session each and every day. If anybody's heard me talk about this, similar to what Coach Corbin does, similar to what, Coach Schlossnagel does, we meet every day in our classroom. And in essence, helps me prepare almost a lesson plan each day. And so within that, I'm able to, slide in a story or slide in a point or sometimes quote a Bible verse. I'm able to do that, and no one in the room really feels any different about it. What I can't do, because we're not a private Christian university, is like each day make that. And I have some friends that are able to do that. I certainly can at a state school. That'll cause some upheaval. But I think being mindful that when I have the opportunity, never shy away from it, never walk away from it. Instead, at times I'll walk towards it. But I am bringing speakers. So like, it's one thing the classroom session allows me to do. So we bring in our FCA person and give him the floor, and he talked for 30 minutes one day, and it was super powerful. And that spearheaded a weekly meeting within our team. It was the first time they had ever had like that FCA feel in our program. And I didn't have to spearhead it. Like, our players wanted it and started running with it. And obviously that I tried to open the door for it and allow it, because it wasn't part of the program before. So I'm trying to find these ways to not, as you guys, get from the state end, you have to be very mindful that the other side of campus is going to see things a little bit differently. But you're not, again, shying away from those opportunities. You're just being smarter about how you go about them. So not a great answer, but I mean, I am working through that.
Yeah. I'm sure it's you got to make sure you juggle that. I understand that.
Sure.
I'm going to ask one more, and then I'm going to throw it to Coach Guerrero and let him ask a couple. But, of course, culture, that's a huge buzzword, over the last several years. And I know we can talk about that, for 2 or 3 hours probably. But just that word, what does it mean to you? You can be as short with it, or if you want to, expand on it, whatever you want to do. But what is that word culture? What does that mean to you?
I would challenge, and I've said this a few times lately, I would challenge anyone on the call that's getting quote unquote cultured out. You can never give this enough attention. So if you're getting cultured out, I would personally question your culture. Because I love this line: culture beats strategy every day of the week, even on Sundays. Like, the culture of your team in your dugout, in your locker room, that can take ordinary and turn it into extraordinary. And we literally feed into that word and that feel every single day in our program. Now, we look at culture a little bit differently. Culture for us is a measurement of the environment that we've created. And I think that dulls that word, and it's not even a word we even use. We talk about environment, the environment that we've created. So if a coach came in, like if any of you came to Gwinnett and you sat in on our training or listened to our classroom and watched us work out, if you dipped your finger into our environment, that would give you a measurement that you could say, man, I felt that culture, man. There it is. It's apparent. But that's only a measurement of the environment we've created. The environment that we have is, in essence, it's based on two words. Pretty simple: trust and love. So taking over a program that had won on the level that we had. So when I took over, 7-year-old program, been to 3 World Series and averaged 47 wins per year. And I mean, just winning was what is all they know. That's all they know is winning. And I can't come in there and say, hey, whatever you've been doing hasn't worked, because some of it's worked. But I know that at the end of the day, a lot of those things I don't resonate with. It's not the environment that I want to create or be a part of, and I need to shift. But if I said there were 15 things that I wanted to end the year and have, I tried to, and I encourage you to do this as a coach, is take those 15 words and really, it's like playing a card game and you lay out 15 cards. Well, can you stack this card on top of that one? So I know these are two separate points in essence, but I could almost combine them into one. And I'm going to take these and stack it here. And I did that with every point that I wanted to make, and I literally boiled it down to trust and love. If we don't have trust, we can't go anywhere we're trying to go. And if these kids don't know, and if obviously I don't know that I love them and they love me, we're definitely not going to get to where we're trying to go. And it's not going to help us build upon what we're trying to do in year 2, 3 through 40. So trust and love are our two biggest words. So if you come to our environment, how do you feel and see trust and love? It would probably come to, in our meetings, you would realize that our program, we don't have rules. So if you phoned one of my players and said, hey, what, name me some of the rules that you guys have in your program, there is not one. There has never been a sheet I've handed them and said, these are our rules. What I gave them was our expectations. Like, here's the expectations of a national championship program, and this is what we live up to, myself included. We live up to these standards every day. Now, I trust you. On Friday night, I trust you. I trust you that we're going to scrimmage tomorrow at 10 a.m., and I trust that you, all of you, believe that our mission of getting better on a Saturday and our effort in our process to go win a national championship, I trust that you'll make smart decisions on Friday night. I'm not going to come to your house and check on you, but I trust that you'll do that. And we kind of live it that way. Trust is also, they know that when I show up, I'll be prepared. And I've never walked in a day and not had a plan and not had an idea of where we're going and what that meant on that day. Love shows up. I don't start a practice until I walk around and I hug each and every one of my players. And I don't end a huddle or a bro hug or a handshake or a conversation without telling them that I love them. I literally just called a kid about 3 hours ago, and it was a kind of the last guy on our roster kind of thing. And he's an outfielder. He's like our 9th outfielder because we've signed 3. And I called him and I said, "Hey man, I'm probably going to sign another outfielder. It's a transfer from the ACC. He's going to be really good. He's probably going to play every day." So what I'm telling you is that, man, when I told you before that you may not see the field, you're really not going to see the field now. So I'm giving you an option here. If you really want to go and play, man, I can help you get to another program and go play. And literally, and it sounds like what it sounds like. I'm in essence telling him he needs to leave, but I'm not telling him that he needs to leave. And he literally says, guys, this is verbatim, Coach, I hear you and I trust you. I know that you're telling me what's right for me. I know you're looking out for me in this scenario. And we literally ended the phone call and I said, "Hey, Tanner, I love you, man." He goes, "Coach, I love you too, man." Like, even in our darkest conversations, those two things are apparent. So I would tell you that our environment, quote unquote, culture comes back to those two words. And I think everything we do bridges off of those two words. It's a base of a tree and everything branches off those two words. That's what I would tell you.
That's awesome.
Hey, can I tell y'all something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Coach Carroll.
Going off Jeremy's talk right there. Coach Bertman at all his camps forever that we worked and all that, and Coach Bertman's Jewish, and trust is his big thing. The number one most important thing in any relationship you'll have with your wife, with your boss, with your coaches is trust. Yep. And his example he gave us, and it's easy to do. I've done this with my team before, and it's a great example. At a Jewish wedding, they get a wine glass or whatever, wrap it up in a towel, put it down and stomp on it. That glass represents the relationship you have. And when you break that trust, the chances of you fixing that relationship or whatever be just like fixing that glass. And when he first told us that, I was like, wow, what a great example. And it's pretty easy. Even your your 504 kids can see all that and, and get all that down, but it's my 1008s, so, but it's a great example that the kids really, some years past when I've done that, they came back later on and said, Coach, that time we stomped on that glass and, that one locked in with them. So that might be a good one,
I'm telling you that I will do that in our classroom this fall.
Yeah, it's a great one. It really is. It really is.
Iron sharpens iron right there. I'm telling you, that it's maybe better. That's awesome.
I'm going to jump to my third question real quick about we do the classroom every day before practice too. Yeah. But on average, how long do you think y'all stay in there?
Anywhere from 5 to 30. I would say on average we're in there for 20. That's probably like our because I do like a lesson each day. I first do like a housekeeping. So like there's usually announcements. Hey, remember this, we got this. Hey, we got a photo shoot here, we got this. So I do announcements. I usually do a lesson plan off that. So a point that I really want to make. A lot of times I make it off of our training plan quote. And so I'll have the training plan up on the board. So we have like the computer deal and it plugs in and it comes up on the TV. So I have the training plan up and I start on the training plan. And a lot of times that quote comes back to the point I'm trying to make today in the lesson. And so I go through the quote and then I explain it and then I start talking and like the training plan's still up, but I spend the next 10 minutes like talking through this point and here's a story and and then I come back to the training plan. So it's probably about 20 minutes is our average. And you guys know how guys are, man. You start getting into 30, 40 minutes, man, you've lost them. Yeah. And so just being mindful, the shorter burst helps. So I'd say 20 is our average. I'd have to bet.
That's what I was thinking. I've had guys ask me before, or even coaches, but like I've told them, I can't remember where I heard this before, but like, in this era, these guys have practiced and played so much baseball.
Yeah.
20 to 30 minutes is not going to make or break them.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I don't really have that big of a problem doing it. But I guess my first question I kind of alluded to, and I really have a two-part question, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I heard, what are your thoughts on the NCAA baseball coaches season change proposal? And the one thing I don't know if I heard y'all talk about was, like, do you think that it's going to, like, automatically filter to all levels of college? Or no. Okay, that's what I was wondering.
No. So I like the idea. I think for Division I, it works perfectly. I think you're dealing with more money. So as Coach Baggage talked about, he roughly estimates between about 40 and 60,000 is the difference that you're going to have to make up when you keep kids past graduation, you keep them through June. But you're really at that point, you're only talking about, 64 teams that really get into that late June date. So it's really only for a few weeks. That's probably on the $40,000 end, and then to carry him the next couple of weeks, you're looking at about 60. Division I can do it. I think it's not a North versus South thing. I think it's a seasonal thing across the country. I think we're looking at starting mid-March, but it's also a health and safety issue. Like, they've changed our calendar for this year to where the kids are going home at Thanksgiving break. A lot of colleges have shifted this. They're going home at Thanksgiving break and they're not coming back. Like we used to come back for like a week or two and do finals and all that. They're staying at home and then they don't start classes again until January 18th. Now that's brand new. And we, in our scheduling for a year, we're supposed to open up January 29th. So what part of me against the number one team in the country? We're number 3. It's going to be, hey, 1 versus 3. Let's roll. Dude, I only have 2 weeks to prepare our team. No shot I'm playing that. So I've got to cancel that weekend. There's no way I'm doing that to our kids. And where it comes back to is for the Division I, they get a chance to come back in, first 2 weeks of January, and they don't have to get on the field and play another team until mid-March. So the safety and the build-up, the ramp-up is more apparent. No. So Division II, that takes its own process because, again, they don't have the finances to work that. Division III, when I was at ABCA, we were working on a proposal that was similar to this. And so it would have carried over through, because, their World Series is like at the end of May. So we were talking about when school ends the first week of May, could we move back and do a regional round and then a super regional round and then the World Series? So you're talking about keeping them in the dorms for an extra 2 weeks. That cost being between $15,000 and $25,000 per school. And we got a lot of pushback on that. I mean, because it's small schools aren't prepared to take on that cost. NEI likely no, junior college likely no. So it really is a Division I proposal. But I do think that the minute it gets implemented and then there's a test of this is going well, here are the actual costs, here's how it looks, then I think we have the opportunity to look at other levels and say, is it something that we could adopt and look at? But it's an uphill battle when you're talking monies, especially at this day and age. As we all know, schools are dropping right and left, and finances are certainly, an issue.
And I guess and I know there's a lot of positives to it. And I was listening to Coach Backett was talking about, it was like the 51st or 57th plan or whatever.
Yeah.
And this has kind of been a touchy subject for me to a degree with college coaches in general. But we hear all the multi-sport athletes being a big topic. Well, I think we're basically forcing kids to be a one-sport athlete if they want to play at the next level if we move to this model, because they're not going to get seen during the spring or the summer. The fall is going to be the only time they get to expose themselves. Do you know if that's even been talked about?
I'm sure it has. I think it definitely, for the college kid, challenges the football, baseball kid. For sure. I don't know if it's that's a good question. I don't know if that's been addressed. I really don't.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because that's the first thing.
That's what our coaches just
he just called me about him. He said,
John, you said you have another question?
Yeah, I was kind of getting a little bit more into I guess the actual on the field type stuff, and I listened to your podcast with Matt. Is it Talarico? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. Yeah.
The steel bases guy, and obviously I heard your passion for base running. Something that you do, I guess, take real pride in.
Yeah.
What are just in I know it's going to be hard to do this kind of in a nutshell. What do you think what key points, if you had to give just a few key points into base running, something that you guys focus on, whether it be on a daily basis or whatever, that where do you guys kind of start with that?
Sure. Well, I have to do it in a nutshell because I only have a couple more minutes, and I got to start our dugout, our stick and ball.
Zoom. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's all good. So here's where we start, man. It is all comes back for me. It starts at as coaches, as builder of programs, we have the opportunity to create the narrative that we want out there from our program's perspective. We control that narrative. And the one thing that if you step back and watch, can teams situationally hit? Sure. Well, really good hitting teams situationally hit, and they hit with runners in scoring position, and they have good strike zone discipline. So, yeah, we need to be good offensively at the plate. But where you start to see things really break down for opposing defenses has always been an aggressive base running attack. That applies on the youth level, the high school level, the travel level, the college level, the professional level. And so it comes back to, if I'm in control of that narrative, then if we work on it every day and it becomes part of what we are, and our kids realize it's part of our machine. We talk about that a lot. It's a bullet in our belt. It's a cog in our wheel. It's part of the machine that makes us who we are. Then they start that. To me, that's like the instant buy-in. They see that it's part of what we do. To me, working on reads off the bat is as important as BP. It's not, hey, just throw it in at the end of your practice plan and let's get some base running in. It's the first thing on our practice plan every day. They stretch and they come straight to base running. It's before they ever touch a baseball, we base run every single day. And so that becomes part of our identity that, hey, at GGC, man, hey, we're going to be a great base running team. And that is a big term because it's not, hey, we're going to lead the country in stolen bases. We were third in the country in stolen bases. And every team we played, and one of the last games we got a chance to play was against like a top 10 team, and they came to town, and the head coach and I were really close. And he said, hey, man, I know you think you're going to run all over us. You guys are averaging like 4 bags a game. Man, I got this lefty we're going to throw against you, and he's just going to pick you to death, and you ain't running on us. And I said, okay, man. Well, and then I hang up the phone. I'm like, well, it's already 1-0.
Yeah.
If you're that worried about what we do, and I don't even care what you guys do, it's already 1-0. And we get in the game, and sure enough, the kids pick. And our guy goes first move, and he picks them off, throws them out, and like their dugout goes nuts. And I think our kids are waiting to see how I was going to react. And I was like, hey, be ready because we're still running. We get the next guy in the game. We find the tell, and he's still second base. We end up stealing 4 bags on him, and we win the game 6-4. And that comes back to the identity that our guys realize that it's not the stealing of the base. It really comes into the gray areas of base running. So, like, third in the country in stolen bases is what you see on paper, but I think we were one of the best teams in the country at going first to third. And not a lot of people are out there hanging their hat on that going, hey, man, we're the best team that goes first to third. Well, we do because we work on it every single day. Scoring from second base, we work on it every single day. Reads off the bat at first and at second base, we work on them every single day because if they get 200,000 reps at a ball off the bat at second base, then we are going to score the run that most people check up at third late in May in the World Series. We're going to score that run. And so it comes back to those things. I think that's what makes a great base running team. The example I always give, I knew I'd get long-winded on this one. The example I always give is this. We played the number 20 team in the country early in the year, and we're playing at their place. Runner at first, I think we did a hit and run, and the kid took off, and our guy backsided it, and he obviously without even questioning. So we always talk about grass, dirt. If a ball off the bat hits grass, then dirt, then grass, automatic first to third. Even if it's hit right at the left fielder, he's going to have to come in and get that ball. It's going to slow up by the time it gets to him. So if it hits grass, dirt, then grass, it's almost an automatic. You might get checked up on the one to left, but man, you have a chance to be aggressive on that one. If it's dirt grass, it's a 50-50 split. If he moves the left fielder left or right, it's a 50-50. If it's center and it's right, man, you should be right. Again, 50-50, that should favor you on the positive side. And if it's grass, like a ball that checks up right at him, a 2-hopper right at him, then you more than likely check up. And so that helps our guys read balls off the bat, make smart decisions and quick decisions. So we're in hit and run, backside ground ball, grass, dirt, grass, and our guy automatically goes first to third. And the right fielder came up, and he tried to throw our guy at third base. And he's safe by 20 feet. And, of course, our runner, because we work on it, just trots into second base. Now it's second, third. I think our kid hits a double. We score both runs. The next inning, same scenario, got first base, and I don't think he was even in motion, but our guy strokes a ball to center field, and our kid goes first to third. Again, grass, dirt, grass, goes right in front of him, and the center fielder comes up and air mails it to third, and luckily the pitcher's backing it up, and our guy comes into second base at second, third. And I remember the guys in our dugout turned and looked at me, and they go, Coach, are they serious right now? And I said, what do you got? They go, are they going to do that all day? Like, have they even talked about it? I said, well, isn't it working out for us? Who cares? That day, we did that 4 times, and they threw to third all 4 times.
Wow.
And all 4 times, we moved up to second base. And so I say that because late in the year, we played West Virginia Tech, and we went first to third. I mean, by that point, we were unconscious. We literally were running in front of the left fielder, and it was awesome. And I remember after the game, Lawrence is the head coach name, great dude. And he goes, man, you guys go first to third better than any team we've played. And I'm going, that's right. Absolutely, man. Hey, we work on it, man. It's part of what we do. And he said, but you defend going first to third better than anybody I've ever played too. He goes, your guys, like you saw our guys gets antsy and they try to throw you out at third and you guys just check up at second. Your guy literally on the ball that he probably could have thrown our guy out realizes that, hey, what we can't do is give up the double play. and he always comes back into second base, and now you guys have first to third, and generally you rolled a double play and got out of it. That, to me, is a sign of a great base running team, is those little gray areas that everybody spends time on leads and breaks and stealing bags. No one spends the time on the little things that really show up in the game that we all know as coaches are backbreakers. Yeah. Your gut gets punched when a guy goes first or third. You're like, oh, God. Or when they score on that ball from second, you're like, oh, man, why'd we cut that off? You cut it off because his read was so good at second base that your third baseman goes, dude, he's safe. Let me check this out. That, to me, is the gray area. Like that, but it starts with identity. Then it starts with daily training, making sure you get those reads off the bat, man, and just it's the 10,000 hour rule, man. Just let those guys get as many reps as they can. And then the last thing is this: eliminate the third base coach. So empower your players that the only ball they need you on is the ball down the right field line that they can't see. If it's in the right field gap, obviously the left center gap or down the left field line, let them make the read. And it's the same way scoring from second. Let them make the read. They know the speed off the bat. They know positioning before the pitch, and they go, oh, I'm scoring on that. No doubt. And they literally run right past our guy. Our third base coach never makes a move unless he absolutely has to. And that's empowerment to me. So I got to roll. I talked way too long.
All right, Coach. Appreciate you, brother. And,
I appreciate you guys, man.
We'll have to get you maybe a second session here in the next several weeks. So.
Anytime, man. Thank you guys for letting me hang out with you. I appreciate the questions and your attention. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right, thanks, John.
Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
See you, fellas.